Hey guys, halfway astray here, still standing in front of the suburban catchment pond here in front of a bunch of office buildings and thinking about psychedelics because it's time to talk about decluttering, breaking open the head. This book was a Christmas gift I asked for on an Amazon wish list, and this wouldn't have been that long ago, definitely within the last 10 years or so. I went through a period of time where I was going onto Amazon and I was looking for interesting books to read, and then I would add them to a wish list, and then when it came time for a birthday or Christmas or whatever, I would have this list of items that I could then give to my wife, she could give to her family, and they would know some things to get me. Well, in the case of this book, I had never really heard of it before, but I read the description and it sounded really interesting. It was about a guy who was kind of trying to take a journalistic approach to the resurgence of psychedelic drugs, and specifically in our modern culture. It turns out reading about people's psychedelic experiences, it's not that interesting. Some of the books I've read before, I feel like have done it really well. Like, for example, I read The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test back in college, and Ken Kesey. I thought that book, did a very good job of sort of capturing that sort of moment in time, but also the mindset of the people that were in it, and also capturing the vibe of being on drugs, man. But I think what happens a lot in this book is it's gets really into the details of all the specific sort of sensations and feelings and the minutia of what he saw and how it happened and all that stuff. Sounds like it'd be really interesting, but turns out when you read it, it's kind of not that interesting. I guess because you're not there, you're not in his head, you're not seeing those things, so just reading about them, it's pretty dry. So I think the reason why I was interested in this book is I wanted to live vicariously through this guy who was having all these really interesting drug experiences or whatever, without actually having to do the drugs myself. But I mean, it turns out you got to do the drugs yourself. Now, there are elements to the story that I felt were very evocative and did feel like I was in it, but those were typically the times when he was on drugs and things went really bad, things went really wrong. I remember there was a scene that he talks about where he felt like he saw this lizard creature. It was half man and half reptile, some sort of reptilian creature, and he could just tell just by looking at it that it wanted to destroy him. But even if I don't totally understand that, it's kind of fun to read because there's something going on. And it looks like over here an ambulance has just pulled up to the massage place that's in the same building as this apartment. Well, I hope everybody's okay. Wow, just every day there's some example of something that makes me think how grateful I am to be in good health. So another thing I remember about this book is it was given to me as a gift. It was given to me as a gift along with 3 or 4 other books at the same time. I had chosen several books on Amazon, and I remember feeling really glad that I had received these books, but I also remember feeling really overwhelmed. This is gonna sound a little strange, maybe not, maybe you can totally relate to this. But anyway, I think it was Christmas time, and I had received 3 or 4 different books that I had chosen all at the same time. And I ended up not reading any of the books for quite a while because I felt so overwhelmed at receiving so many at the same time. Maybe it's a fault of my own that I have trouble sort of prioritizing something like that. I feel like what I want to do is just choose one book and read through the whole thing, and move to the next book, read through the whole thing, move to the next book, read through the whole thing. But in a way, by receiving all of those books all together, I sort of felt like I didn't know which one to choose, didn't know where to start, and I also felt like I might be missing out on the other book by choosing this book and reading this book. Or I might read part of this book and then feel a little bit bored, or maybe it wasn't that interesting, and then want to switch to the other book, which I wouldn't want to do because then I'm sort of stuck going back and forth between the 2 books instead of just finishing the one book anyway. I have some problems in my own life with managing these possessions. I think I treat these things like they're way more important than they actually are. And that's been a problem for me for decades now. These things will come into my life and I treat them like I have this big responsibility to them, or that if I don't read all these books, then somehow I'm a bad person, or I've failed, or I feel guilty about myself. Anyway, working through a lot of this stuff is helping me, and the best thing I can do is just keep making these videos, and I don't know, maybe it'll help me figure this out. Just like that, I've come to the conclusion of shooting these videos here at this storm drain pond. I still don't know what to call it. One interesting thing is that since I've been here, I've seen a few guys come over here and fish in this thing. I personally would not want to eat these fish. I hope these guys are just, you know, fishing for fun or whatever, and they're not going to take these fish home and eat them because, yeah, it's free fish, but this is like free industrial runoff fish. I'd tap the brakes on those.